What's your favorite summer clothing item? Is it a t-shirt and shorts, a swimsuit, a hat? Mine is most definitely flip-flops. I love flip-flops and I wear them nearly every day in the summer that I can. Today's story tells us about a special item of clothing that led to some more trouble for this family. It can be found in Genesis 37 through 41 in your Bibles. Do you remember where we left off last time in the story of Jacob? God gave Jacob a new name, Israel, and he returned to the land where he had been born in Canaan. Our story picks up today with Jacob, now known as Israel, giving his most favorite son a gift, an elaborate, decorative, colorful robe or coat, an outer garment, a coat of many colors. When his 11 brothers saw that his father gave him this special coat, they were jealous that their father loved him more and couldn't even speak a kind word to him. Well, Jacob had a dream, and when he told it to his brothers, they hated him even more. He said, "I had a dream. We were putting grain into bundles out in the field when suddenly my bundle stood up, and all of your bundles stood around me and bowed down." His brothers said, "Do you plan on ruling over us?" And they hated him even more. Then Joseph had another dream, and rather than keeping it to himself, he told it to his brother and his fathers. He said, "Listen to my dream from today. This time the sun and the moon and 11 stars were bowing down to me." His brothers were jealous again, and his father said, "Do you really think we're all going to bow down to you?" Joseph's brothers had gone to let the sheep and cattle graze in a nearby town, and his father said, "I'm going to send you to check on your brothers and come back and tell me if they're okay." So Joseph went to the place where he thought they'd be, but they weren't there. But someone told him they'd gone on to the next town, so he went on. As he got closer to them, his brothers saw him coming and they came up with a plan. They decided to kill him. They decided to throw him into a well that was dried up and say that a ferocious animal had eaten him. But Reuben heard their plan and said, "Let's not take his life. Let's just put him in this dry well." Reuben said that because he had hoped to come back later and free him and take him back to his father. So when Joseph got to his brothers, they took off his robe and threw him in the well. Then they saw a caravan of people traveling on camels on their way to Egypt. And Judah said, "Hey, instead of killing our brother and getting nothing, why don't we sell him as a slave and get the money?" So they sold him for 20 shekels of silver. When Reuben got back and saw that the well was empty, he tore his clothes and was greatly distressed. And they took some blood from a goat and dipped Joseph's colorful robe in it. They took the robe back to their father, and Jacob recognized it and mourned for his son for many days, thinking he was dead. Meanwhile, the people who bought Joseph sold him again in Egypt to Potiphar, one of the officials of Pharaoh. At Potiphar's house, Jacob had success in everything he did and found favor in Potiphar's eyes, so he rose in power and responsibility. He was put in charge of everything in the household. But Potiphar's wife tricked Joseph and got him thrown into prison because she lied. Even while Joseph was in prison, though, God was with him and showed him kindness. Joseph won the favor of the prison guard and was made responsible for everything and everyone in the prison. And after a while, the cupbearer and the baker for the king were both put in prison, the same prison where Joseph was. After they'd both been there for a bit, they had a dream, and Joseph saw them looking upset and asked them, "What's wrong?" They both said, "We've had dreams, but we don't know what they mean." Joseph said, "Tell me your dreams." So the cupbearer said, "I saw a vine with 3 branches, and they blossomed, and there were clusters of grapes ripening. And then Pharaoh's cup was in my hand, and I squeezed them into the cup and gave it to him." "What does that mean?" Joseph said, "It means that within 3 days you'll be back to your job as the cupbearer. And when you are, please remember me and help me. I've done nothing to deserve to be here." And the baker said, "My dream was that there were 3 baskets of bread, and the top basket had all kinds of baked goods for the Pharaoh, but there were birds eating out of the basket on my head." Joseph said, "This means that within 3 days you're going to die, and the birds will eat your flesh." Well, 3 days later, it was the Pharaoh's birthday, and he gave a feast for all of his officials, and he brought the cupbearer back to his job. But he killed the baker, just like Joseph had said in his interpretation. But the cupbearer forgot all about Joseph, and so he stayed in prison. 2 whole years later, Pharaoh had a dream. He was standing out in the Nile River when in came 7 fat cows who were eating along the riverbank. And then 7 other skinny cows came and ate the 7 fat cows. And then he woke up. He fell back asleep again, and he had another dream. This time there were 7 heads of healthy, good grain growing on a stalk, and then 7 heads of bad grain that had been scorched by the wind and was really thin came. But the thin wheat ate the good wheat once again. Pharaoh woke up and was so distressed by these dreams. He called for all the magicians and wise people in Egypt to come and interpret these dreams, but no one could. But then the cupbearer remembered there was a guy in prison named Joseph who had helped me know what my dream meant. So Pharaoh told the cupbearer to go and get Joseph. Joseph said, I can't interpret these dreams, but God can tell me what they mean. So Pharaoh told him all about the skinny cows eating up the fat cows and the bad wheat eating up the good wheat. And Joseph said, these dreams mean the same thing. First, there will be 7 years of good times and good harvest, represented by the fat cows and the healthy wheat. And then there will be 7 years of famine where there won't be enough grain or food for those who need it. People will forget the 7 good years because the 7 bad years will be so severe. So Pharaoh said, I need someone to put in charge of a plan that will save up the abundance of all the good years so that we can have it stored for the bad years. This plan will keep everyone well. So Pharaoh said to Joseph, since God has made all this known to you, I want you to be in charge of my palace and in charge of all these plans. Everyone will respect you, and only I will be greater than you. So the Pharaoh put Joseph in charge of all of Egypt, and he gave him royal robes and a chariot, and Joseph took a wife. And during those 7 years of abundance, Joseph collected all the food and stored it up in the cities. He stored up huge quantities of grain, so much that they stopped counting it. When the 7 years of famine began, countries everywhere began to suffer, but Egypt had plenty of food, and Joseph coordinated the efforts to get food to all the people of Egypt, and people came from all over the world to buy grain and endure the famine. So, from a beautiful coat of many colors, to life in prison, to royal robes again, Joseph's clothes certainly changed throughout his lifetime, as did his everyday life, from being the most loved son to the most hated brother, the most special treatment to the worst, the most powerful servant in Potiphar's house to a prisoner, the dream interpreter to the forgotten prisoner, to finally second in the nation of Egypt under the Pharaoh. He had to wear a lot of different shoes, or coats, or hats, as we might say. But through it all, God had a plan for his life, and God was with him. What new hats or shoes or coats are you having to put on in these days? Have you had to learn some new independent skills this summer, or will you be learning from home in a new way this fall? Perhaps you've had to help care for something new in your home, or help with a sibling or a chore in a new way. Perhaps you haven't yet, but soon you might have to. Whatever hats or shoes or clothes or pajamas you have to wear these days, God has a plan for your life and is with you as you figure out new ways to do new things and adjust to the bumps along the road. Joseph's life was filled with bumps and hard times, but God was at work the whole time. So if you ever feel discouraged that things aren't what you'd hoped they'd be, that you're having to face some bumps and challenges along the way, don't doubt that God is still at work through it all and has a plan for you too.